Um, our first announcement is that you probably found us via our meetup page, but I will drop a link here to everyone here to where you can see this is probably where you found us, but here's where we are, and you can find our various events and whatnot. So I think we're probably taking June off, and then we have someone joining us in July. So you can check out Emil Wiedfeld is going to be speaking in July about sparsity and tidy models. So that will be pretty interesting, I think. And I think after that, in August is when USAR is happening, and USAR has a virtual day on August 1st. So let me find, I was going to drop the link to that. So if you are, I mean, if you're able to travel to USAR, of course, that is wonderful. But then also there is a virtual day on August 1st. So we would encourage you all to hang out for that day with all the people who are giving virtual talks there at USAR on August 1st. So that's what we're going to consider kind of our August meetup. And then in September, PositConf is happening, and that also has virtual participation. So the virtual sign up for the virtual version of PositConf happens a little later this month, so you can keep an eye out for that. I'll be sure to share that on LinkedIn and social media and all that kind of thing. We use our consortium code of conduct. So let me share the link to that. Oh, it's taking me a minute to find it. So this is a friendly and professional space where we want to treat each other with the same professionalism that we would if we were in the same room together. So there's a link to our consortium's our community code of conduct. So I am one of the moderators and leaders here, and Andrew is as well, and we'll be sure to moderate the chat and make sure that everything goes well with that. I think those are all of the announcement we have right now about upcoming events and things that we think you should be aware of. I am really happy to welcome our speaker here today. So Maëlle Salmon has a PhD in statistics and is a research software engineer and a wonderful blogger with excellent writing. So one of the places Maëlle does her work is is at our Open Sci, and where she maintains the book about package development, like how things work at our Open Sci, and also works on packages for multilingual documents such as Babel Down and Babel Quarto. She also works at Syncra, where she works on iGraph and Fledge packages, and is also the co-author of a book about HTTP testing in R, which has been so useful for me because one of our packages I maintain is about API access, and so I always come back to that every time I'm like, all right, how do I do these testings again? And the Amal also works contracts with various organizations and is part of the member of Our Ladies Global. So I feel like Maëlle and I have been in these circles together, and it's always a pleasure to get to hear what you have to say. And I'm very excited that we are here today to learn about some slightly more advanced tools when it comes to Git. This is something I'm always wanting to get better at. So Maëlle, thank you for coming. Thank you for preparing this, and we are excited to learn a little bit more about how to create better Git history.
Thank you. First, I'm very happy to be here. Thank you for the invitation. I have a cold, so I might disappear for a few seconds at a time, but I will come back every time.
Perfect. Maëlle will always come back. That's good. You can type questions in the chat, or if you prefer to use the Q&A feature in Zoom, you can type theirs as well. Andrew and I will keep an eye on that as Maëlle is speaking, and we may draw Maëlle's attention to something right as we're going along, or we may we'll have time for questions at the end as well. So please feel free to type questions that you may have as we're going along. Awesome. I'll turn it over to you, Maëlle.
Thank you. So you can find my slide deck at this link. You will put it in the chat, maybe?
Yes, I absolutely will.
SLC-RUG-May-Hack. So the title of my talk is Hack Your Way to a Good Git History. So I want to show why we should get a good Git history and how, but like in a not too difficult way. So I would like to start by mentioning an old computer game that I used to play as a kid, which is called The Incredible Machine, in which we had to build Rube Goldberg's machine. So for instance, we had the empty screen, light switch on the right, and we had to turn it on by using different elements and animals such as balloons, cats, mice. And this game was very funny, like you could build very complicated machines to reach your goal, which I sometimes think of when I do something with computers and it's a bit too complicated than it should be. But I also think about it when I use Git, because there is a parallel. So when you play the Incredible Machine, it becomes enjoyable once you know what each element can do, like the balloon will go up, the cat will run after the mouse wants to eat cheese. So these kind of basic concepts. And with Git, so I used to have a very basic level, so not saying I'm an expert now, but I know a bit more because I read this book. And now that I know more about these basic concepts, when I use Git, it's much more enjoyable than it used to be. And that's something I want to share with you today. So Git, that you probably already use, is very handy. With Git, you lose your work less. You can work on different aspects of your projects in parallel, like in branches. And you get a history to use locally or on platforms like GitHub. So that's very, very handy. I've listed resources that I like at the end of the deck, like including the book I've very quickly shown. And when we learn Git, I felt that one thing we hear very often is that we should create small commits with informative messages. And I would like to show you 3 reasons why it's really worth it to create these small commits with informative messages. And then I will show you how we can get them. So imagine we get this script with this misuse line of code. So maybe that's code we wrote ourselves, but like before our vacation, or that someone else wrote. So we have no idea why this line is here. So it's x left arrow x minus 1. And unfortunately, there is no comment before the lines. We really have no clue, but Git can help us understand why this line is here using something called git blame. So this is a pretty bad name. We could call it git explain, but the actual name is git blame. For each line of code, git blame will show us when it was last modified, or when it was added, and when, by whom, and with which message. And we can click on the commit. We can also look at git blame as it was at this commit, so we can really explore history starting from the file. Here in this case, I can see that the line I am interested in was added by a bot in 2017. And at this stage, I can click on the commit, like if it's git blame on GitHub, I will click on the commit, and that's where someone else or I chose my adventure. If I am not lucky, I will get a big commit whose message is commit a bunch of files before lunch, and it shows a huge diff. And unfortunately, this doesn't help me. Like I'm not getting any clue about why this line was added. If I'm lucky, I get a small commit, only 2 change files, 3 additions, 2 deletions, and it says fix adapt code to tool 0 indexing. So now that makes sense why we would change, like remove 1 from X. So at this stage, I know why this line was added. I can add a comment so that next time I read this code, I don't need to dig into the history, but I am not stuck anymore. And this only depends on the quality of the commit. Second reason why a small commit is better. So imagine that we've been working on a project for a few hours and we realized that the thing we did 7 commits ago in several files was a bad idea. So we need to undo it somehow. So how do we remove our bad idea? So maybe we manually remove the change. But if it's a change we did in like many files, it's going to take a while and it's pretty boring work and we couldn't make a mistake. Or we could revert the commit, like undo the commit itself, the commit that added the change. And again, like we can actually revert commits, so that's the actual git command, git revert, undo commits, but this only works well if the commit is small. If that commit 7 commits ago had other changes in it, if we undo the commit, we will have to redo the other changes. So that's not practical at all. So I would like to show a first demo, and I will show several demos during this talk using a package that I created that's called SLC-RUG, which is a French crossword, an old-fashioned crossword. So it's a cute crossword that you can teach your kids. And in SLC-RUG, what we do is to create Git sandboxes, which are folders with a Git history and a small Git challenge. And you can recreate them. Like you can create a folder, try to do this exercise, and if you like mess it up, you can start again. So that helps you practice some Git commands. So in all chunks where I will do demo, I create a directory, like a local temporary directory with our package, and then I call one of the SLC-RUG functions that create an exercise. So let me do that. Let's wait for RStudio to start. So when we open this new session with our new sandbox, we get messages that explain the problem we have. And this particular exercise comes from a wonderful website called Oh Shit Git. So this is not awesome, like shit, but on this website, you get like Git scenarios that you can get in that are pretty bad and how you can get out of them. So this one is, oh shit, I need to undo a commit from like 5 commits ago. And the more specific instruction from SLC-RUG is I want to undo my fix things commit as it broke stuff. So let's look at what we have here. So we have several files. We have the Git file, we have an R profile, and we have this fix.txt file and a blah file. And if we look at the history from the Git tab in RStudio on the top right, so we have several commits, the first commit, and the commit we want to undo, the one that was message is fix things. So if I didn't know how to approach this problem, how to undo a commit, I could get another level of instructions from SLC-RUG by running the tip function, which gives me more advice on how to solve this problem. And it tells me examine Git history, and it also tells me that the command to run is git revert, the #c, and then after doing that, I have to examine Git history, the Git history again, and my files. So the commit I want to undo is this one. It's a commit that added a file called fix.txt. I need to copy its hash, which is the one at the top. So I tend to make the mistake when I have to copy a SHA from RStudio Git interface. I tend to copy the one from the parent, and that's not the one we want. The one we want is the one at the top. So then in a terminal, I run git revert this. I will also type this, no commits. So the reason I want to type no commit, if I don't do that, it will open my Git editor for me to edit the commit message. And in this case, my Git editor is positron that I want to show later, but not now. So that's why I'm typing no commit. And in my Git tab, I see that there is like the fix.txt file is deleted, it's already staged, and I only need to commit it to undo the previous commit. So I can have git commit -m for message and undo bug, for instance, as a message. So I'm doing that. So, and if I refresh here, so I still have the fix things commit in my history, but the latest commit is the undo bug that undoes this commit that I had done previously. So this is what git revert does. You give it the hash of a commit and it creates a new commit that undoes this change. So I can close this demo. So git revert only works for a small commit. So last reason why it's important to have small commits with informative messages is when you have this case where you are doing something with your very complex project 3 days ago, and it worked perfectly. Then in those 3 days, you worked on your project, you made some changes, and you were not doing bad thing you were doing 3 days ago. So now, today, you try doing the same thing, but it no longer works. So at some point in those 3 days, you made a change that broke your thing, but you have no idea which one, and for some reason, the normal debugging methods don't help. So are you stuck forever? Well, you're not. You can use a Git thing called Git bisect that helps you explore the commit history to find which commit introduced a bug. So these faces, each one represents a commit. So on the left, we have a face with sunglasses. This is when your thing was working and you knew it. And on the right, we have this sobbing face, which is when your thing is not working. And in the meantime, we have all these sleeping faces. You were not sleeping, you were working on your project, but you were not checking that these things still work. So one of these commit is a culprit. One of these commit introduced a bug in your project, and we will find out which one. So Git bisect puts your project in the state it was at a given commit. So it really goes back in time and it puts your file at the stage it was, and it asks you to try out your thing, and you try it out and you can see if the project was working or not. So for instance, at the third commit, you try doing your thing. If it works, then it means that all the first 3 commits were good. They didn't introduce a bug. Then maybe Git bisect throws you at the 5th commit. So you try doing your thing, and if it does not work, it means this commit and all the one after that have the bug. And we have one last commit to explore, the 4th commit. So you try at this stage doing your thing with the project as it was at that commit. If it does not work, it means this is the culprit. This is the first commit at which things were broken. And again, like someone chose your adventure for you. Like you get, as a result, a commit. So if it's a very big commit that has copied a bunch of files before workout, then again, you're stuck. That does not help. But if you're lucky, it says, refactor, start using YAML. So it's YAML. You probably forgot a quote somewhere. So I will show you Git bisect, and I really encourage you to try it out at least once, because I think that if you're in a stage where you need, like a state where you need Git bisect, you're pretty desperate. So that's not the moment where you are going to learn how to do Git bisect. So better to do that in advance. So let me launch this new demo. So here we have no message starting with oh shit, because this is not an exercise that is inspired by oh shit Git. This is something I made up. So the message says, hey, since when has my script.r stopped working? I need to use Git bisect. So we're not going to open the script because the bug I put in there is actually very easy to find. So we're not going to open it, otherwise no reason to use Git bisect. So let me try sourcing this script. So I get an error when I'm running the script. So how do I go about that? So what I'm going to do is run git bisect start. And git bisect is a mode of Git. So we enter this mode, and it's very important to remember we have to exit this mode when we want to resume normal work. When we want to do stuff such as git commit, we need to exit git bisect with the command called git bisect reset. So it's telling me it's waiting for both good and bad commits. So let me look at the history of this project. So I have many commits. I have more than 100 commits, and each of them has a message edit script. So I have many commits, and the good one is the first one. Like I know that when I did the first commit, my script was working. So this is going to be my good commit. So git bisect speaks easy English. So you only need to say git bisect good, and then the hash. And now it's only waiting for the bad commit, and the bad commit that we know is the last one. So I'm going to this last commit, and I'm taking this hash. I'm typing git bisect bad. And this commit. And now it's starting. So it has put my project at the state it was at the previous commit. So I'm going to the console and I will try running my script. And I'm getting an error. So as I said, git bisect speaks easy English. So I only to write git bisect bad. So this is bad. I'm going back to the console. I'm trying to store the script again. So here I am getting an error. So this is git bisect bad again. So another step, running the code again. So this does not give any error. So this is git bisect good. So let's go back to the console. I'm getting an error. So I'm going to type git bisect bad. Going back to the console, I'm getting an error again. So this is git bisect bad. I'm going to console again. I'm getting an error. So it's git bisect bad. So at this stage, we could think there is nothing left to do because it says 0 revisions left, but it's actually 0 revision left after this step. So git bisect speaks easy English, and it also doesn't really count as we would count. So I still have to test one thing. So I'm going to source my script again, and I'm not getting an error. So this last one is git bisect good. And based on this information, I'm getting the hash of the commit that introduced a bug. So let me look for this commit in the Git history. So the zoom toolbar is right where it's annoying. Okay, here, as I'm typing in the search. No, oh, again, I made the mistake, but I said shouldn't do so. If I want to look at history, I need to exit git bisect. So now I can go to the history. And oops. So this is a commit that is a culprit, and what it did is I have all these lines that that have 1 + 10, 1 + 11, 1 + 12, and this has this random string that of course cannot be found, and this is why I'm getting this error. Cannot be found. So this is the bug. Very easy bug, but with git bisect you can find much more complicated bugs than this one. So you might have noticed that git bisect was extremely repetitive. So I ran git bisect bad or good, then I had to source my script, and if it failed, it was giving an error, then it was bad. So it's screaming for automatization, and it's actually very easy to automate this case. So if you have a bug that's giving an actual error, and maybe you can tweak your bug so that it gives an actual error, you can run git bisect in a much more easy way. So I'm going to run git bisect again, like a bit faster. So I'm typing git bisect start to start again, and I will give it the hashes of good and bad commits. So so the bad one is the latest one. So git bisect bad. I don't think it makes any difference if you give the bad one first. And then here, git bisect good for the first one. So the way to, so I'm going to tell git bisect what to run at each stage. I'm trying to do it from memory, but if it does not work, I will run the tip function. So I'm typing git bisect run rscript r script.r. And it's working. So it's doing all this like repetitive and annoying steps on its own. So I don't need to do them. And it gives me the same result as it did like the first time. It gives me the hash of the culprit, except I didn't have to like switch between the terminal and the console again and again. So that's it for git bisect. Oops. So the git history really is like if you make these small commits, it's much more useful later. And in Git in practice, by Mike McQuaid. Mike McQuaid wrote, "There is no need for everyone to see the mistakes you made along the way. So I hope that you work somewhere and it's fine for you to make mistakes along the way, but you don't need to keep them in your Git history." And I'm going to show you how. And I used to think that it was very difficult to get a nice Git history. Like, I think that often at work it's already difficult enough, like to get your R code working, and then you have to think about Git on top of that. That seems undoable. But one day I realized that people that get a nice Git history, they might fix up their Git history later. So you first do your code work, like you get your R project, your Shiny app, whatever, you get it working in your branch, and then you can fix up the history. So that's really something you can do in 2 steps, and that's completely fine. So I'm going to show you 4 methods to get a nicer Git history. So the first tip is not a method, is to work in branches. So if you don't do your changes on the main branch, on the default branch, things are much easier to fix. But I will start by showing you a method that you can use when you work on the main branch. So it's a repeated amend from Happy Git with R. So repeated amend uses git commit amend, and maybe you've never used git commit amend, so I'm going to show you what it is. So here, this is an exercise that comes from Git. So it says, "Oh shit, I committed and immediately realized I need to make one small change. I wanted to list 3 things in my BLAF file, not only 2. So my BLAF file is here. It has 2 things and I wanted 3. If I look at the history, I have a commit that says fit add blah, and it adds a file with these 2 things. And I actually wanted to list 3 things in this commit, not 2. So how do I fix it up? So I start by fixing my file. So I write thing 3. And then I am going to amend this commit. So to do that, let me do that from the terminal. I'm going to stage this file by running git add blah. And then I will run git commit, amend, no edit. So this might sound like a weird thing to do because amend and edit are sort of synonyms. So amend means I want to amend the last commit, and no edit means I do not want to edit the message of the last commit. So I amend the commit, but I do not edit the message because the message was good as it was. I want to keep it. So I run this. It's asking me for my passphrase again. Oops. And if I look at the history, oops, I need to refresh it twice. So the last commit now adds the 3 things, not only 2. So I was able to fix up my last commit by running git commit amend.
Does it show the date that you put it in now or the original date, please?
It will show you the current current date, I think. Yes, that's now. And this was not now. Like with Sapali Puppet, you always get the same date and times, and this is like in 2023. So this is now. So it doesn't lie on the date. Does that answer your question? No.
We've got another question. This is people are like, "What are you doing? Let me tell me more about that." So someone's asking me, can you amend a commit if you have already pushed it to the remote?
Yes, but in that case, you will need to push force, which I wouldn't recommend doing on the main branch.
Yeah.
Or, unless that's your own main branch. Like, no, if no one else works on your project, it's fine for you to push to force push on the main branch. So based on git commit amend, we can look at the repeated amend method. So as I said, it comes from Happy Git with R. And the idea is that you want to do something in your project, like adding a cool thing. So you do a first bit of work towards that goal, but you stop, but before you're at that goal, like the project is nowhere near done, you do a commit and you create it with a message that's a bit aspirational, fit add cool thing. You're not adding the cool thing yet, you're adding the first part of your work. Then you work again, like you do the second bit of work, and what you do is you do git commit amend no edit. And you do that again and again. So you are gradually building a good commit, gradually building the perfect commit that really adds this cool thing. And once you're done, you can push. So and when you push this perfect commit. So it looks as if you had figured it out on the first try. So this is the original repeated amend when you work on the main branch. What I like to do is the repeated amend on a branch. So I first create a branch, like for instance, I call it feature thing. So I create the branch with git checkout -b. And then I do my first bit of work. I create the commit with the aspirational message and I push. And the second time I do that, because I've already pushed, as we've just said, like I push first. So I do git push -first, which is fine, even if I share this project with other people, because I'm doing that in my own branch. And the reason why I like this method is that I really like to push things all the time. Like I like the idea of having this backup on the remote. And once I'm done, I do a last git push first, and I have put this perfect commit on the feature thing branch. So this is a repeated amend. Now a second method that also gives you one commit from a mess is squash and merge. So imagine you've been working in a branch and you wanted to add a cool thing. So you actually struggled a bit to get it working. So you had this cool thing commit, then a test, then a commit that asked, will this test not work? You sort of had a fix, YAML plus grows grew, you were really angry, then you had a commit that says fingers crossed, and then update change log. So this is a commit history that tells a history of your work day, but this is not, it shouldn't be the history that you put on the main branch because that's not that informative. So what you can do when you're GitHub, GitLab, or local if that's how we merge this, is squashing the changes. So, but I only do that from the GitHub interface. I click on the right button so that all these commits that are put on the main branch as one single commit that has a nice message that I type. For instance, it says fit add cool thing. So I've put an example of that. So not from my work, this is from the deploy repository. You add this pull request that formatted with error, and it had 9 commits, and it was merged into the main branch. I think that's here. I can find the commit as one single commit. So 9 commit into 1 commit. And you can do that no matter how many commits you have, and it helps you get a cleaner Git history on the main branch. So now these two methods, they got you from a mess to one single commit, which is often fine and enough, but sometimes you might want a bit more granularity in your Git history. So I'm going to show you 2 methods to get that. So the first one is start from scratch. So imagine that this, like you have this branch with all these changes, like many commits, and you're happy with the changes you made to the files, you're not happy with the history. So you use git reset mixed to keep the changes in the files, but to remove them from the Git history. And then, because you have the benefit of hindsight, you can build the commits in a better way using git add. You can even use git add patch, which is this way to split the changes you made to a single file into different commits. So you choose for each commit which part of the changes you made to one file, like which of these changes you stage. So I'm going to show you a demo of start from scratch. And these last 2 demos I'm going to do in Positron. So here is Positron. If you have not seen it, you should ask questions to Julia about this. It's a new ID by Posit. And I'm showing this in Positron because in Positron you can install Git extensions. And for the very last demo, that is going to be very useful. So yes, I'm trusting the authors, like me. Okay, so as in RStudio, I'm getting the messages from Sapali Puppet. So it tells me I want to the commit history of the feature branch looks matter. I can undo the commits and keep the changes, and I could run the tip function if I needed more help. So let me look at the history of the branches. No, that's not. So I have this, or let me look at the file first. So I have a file called blah.r that does 1 or 2, and then a ci.yaml file that has some CI configuration. And the history of this branch as this commit is add CI configuration, add script, try to fix CI, try to fix CI, try to fix script, add a CI thing, fix script. So you can really see there are two streams of work in this branch. Like there are commits touching the script and commits touching the CI. And what I would like to do is have only two commits, one about the script, one about the CI configuration. So I'm going to do the reset. So I'm copying the ID of the first commit. So in positron, if you right click on the commit, you get a copy commit ID. That's how I'm getting it. So I'm going to the terminal and I'm typing git reset --- mixed, and then I paste the hash. So now if I look at the Explorer, like at the file, I still have the la.r file with its content, and I still have the ci.yaml file with its content. So this has not changed, but in my Git tab, nothing is staged. So I can build the commits as I want. So I will stage the CI script first and type the commit message. So add configuration. Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention, when I use this weird prefixes at the beginning, this comes from a conventional called conventional commits, where you can add a type to your commits. So that they can be fixes, they can be features, they can be CI. So that's why I'm doing that, but you don't have to. So I'm now committing this change. Then I'm going to stage the script, and I'm typing fit at blah. So I'm doing that, and I can look at the history of my branch. Now the history of my branch looks very smart. I have this CI commit and this commit with the script. So this is how I fix it up, by starting from scratch, but only as regards the commits. We did not undo the changes we made to the top. So last method that I want to show today is how to mix and match your commits by using Git Rebase Interactive. So I will show Git Rebase Interactive twice, once the hard way and once using the GitLens extension in Positron. So okay. I will start the demo from here, that's fine. So the instruction from sample library, again, it says, hey, I want the commit history of the feature branch to look smarter. And actually, we can be very quick looking at the current situation, because that's exactly the same situation as we were in before. That's the same feature branch, same script, same configuration, but we are just going to fix it using a different method. So we're going to use Git Rebase Interactive. And again, I will need the ID of this first commit. So in the terminal, I'm typing Git Rebase Interactive with this hash. And just a note that in the tip function in this exercise, there is a more general way to find the commit ID that you need for this Git Rebase Interactive. So if you want the hash, you can also run git merge base, the name of your branch, the name of the default branch, and it gives you the like the commit that is at the intersection. This. And I'm switching to text. So you saw a nice interface. That's the thing I will show you afterwards, but I'm showing Git Rebase Interactive how it looks like when you like sort by default. If you do not change the Git editor like configuration on your machine, you will get this in Vim, which I find pretty difficult to use. So I would recommend first setting your Git editor to something more natural, something that you prefer, unless you want to use Vim. So you have all these commits, and contrary to what you get when you use Git log, the newest you first get the oldest commit. So the oldest commit at the top, whereas git log would give you the newest commit at the top. So what I will do is I will reorder the commit by cutting and pasting them. So I'm putting all the commit related to the CI configuration together. So like this. I will stop here for this rebase. You can run git rebase interactive several times in a row, which is what we're going to do. Because in my slide deck, I'm going to recommend a blog post by Julia Evans called, not a blog post, a cartoon with rules for git rebase. And it says, do not do several things at the same time with git rebase. So I will follow this rule now. So we have just reordered the commits. So I will close the editor. And now git rebase is doing its thing. And if we look at the history of our branch, we now have all the commits related to the CI and then all the commits relating to the script. But we still have too many commits, so I will run git rebase interactive again. So the ID of the first commit hasn't changed. And switching to text. So I will here change the text, but at the beginning. So it says pick, which means we're going to keep it. And the comments are actually explained as comments in this file. So we could have pick, reword, but what I want to do is fix up. Fix up means that this commit will be merged into this first commit, keeping the message of the first commit. So I don't need to change the message. So, fix up. And then all these 4 commits related to CI will become one commit with the message of the first commit. Then I'm doing that for the 3 commits that relate to the script. So I'm doing fix up. I'm writing fix up, and they will become one commit. So I save this file. I close it. Oops. Okay, and now I'm getting this nice history. So I have a first commit related to the CI, a second one related to the script. So this was git rebase interactive the hard way because we use this text file. So I will show it again with a nicer interface. Where did I launch this demo here? So with Sapperly Puppet, you can simply rerun the code and it will create a new sandbox for you. So you can do the exercise again. So we're getting the same instruction, we still have the same history, and I'm still copying the ID of that first commit. I'm copying git rebase interactive, the hash. And I am going to use this pretty interface that I get from GitLens, which is an extension you can install in Positron. And this is one, I suppose that other Git interfaces also have a nice interface for a rebase, but that's the one I know. So you can, first of all, drag and drop the commits. So we can drag and drop all the commits related to CI to put them together. And I find it very nice to do it this way because I don't need to cut them. And I'm not going to stop here. So I am going to do several things at once in one rebase. So I reordered them and I'm going to merge them in this same step. So now for each commit, we have a drop-down menu that shows us what we can do with it, like reward if we want to change a commit, edit if we want rebase to stop, and let us edit the files in this commit. Squash if we want to squash it with the previous commit, but then editing the message. Fix up, which is what we want to use, where we squash the commit into the previous one, but we keep the message of the first commit. And drop, which means I don't want to keep this commit in my history, just drop the changes. So I'm going to choose fix up. And you can notice that the interface shows you what it's going to do. So it shows you on the left that it's going to create one commit from these changes, and that the message will be the message from the first commit. So it's very, very nice. So we're going to get one commit with the CI configuration stuff, and we're going to get one commit with the script stuff. So this is really neat and a easier way to do git rebase interactive. And then to get the Git rebase actually starting, we click on Start Rebase. It's doing its thing, and now the history of our feature branch looks as we wanted it to look. So that was the last demo. So I've put links to Content by Julia events about rebasing. So to conclude, so why should you have small informative commits? So it helps you create a more useful history. So when you want to run git blame, to understand the history of a file, to understand why a given line was added, for instance. When you have to run git bisect to find which commit in a series of commits created a bug that you have trouble tracking down. Or when you want to run git revert, which undoes a single commit by committing a new commit. So how do you create beta commits? The most important message is that you don't need to get it right on the first try, because you can always fix up your history afterwards. So you can concentrate on your R code and then concentrate on Git. So one method is repeated amen from happy git with R, which is a method by which you gradually build a good commit. Squash and merge pull request, where you squash all the commits from a branch into one on the main branch. You can then use a more complicated methods that go from one mess of commits to a few commits, like when you need more granularity. So start from scratch means that you use git reset mix to undo the changes from the history, but not undo them from the files. And mix and match your commit is what we've just seen, like git rebase interactive, where we can reorder commits, we can merge them together, and things we have not seen, we can drop them or we can edit them. So you can use Happily Puppet package to practice safely. So I wanted to show you the reference of the package. We have exercises that are inspired by Hoshit Git, the website that has all these scenarios that you can find yourself in when using Git and how to get out of them. And other exercises that I added because I found them useful. For instance, there is one exercise that would help you practice Git at patch, like splitting the changes to a file into several commits. So I'm trying to learn Rust, and my learning project, which I actually haven't touched in a few weeks, is to rewrite Happily Puppet as a CLI. So we'll see how it goes in the future, but maybe one day I can actually say it's finished. So when you use Git, you've seen I've used RStudio and I've used Positron. So you can use whatever you like, because Git should not be in your way, like it should help you. So if you use a terminal, the big advantage is that it never changes and you learn the words. Like you learn that staging different chunks is called Git at patch, for instance. In RStudio IDE, there is some basic Git support built in. That's pretty nice. But you might have noticed that I needed to click refresh for the history to actually reflect what I had done in the terminal when I did Git stuff in the terminal. So that's but if you click to do the Git thing, then it doesn't need to be refreshed. And the Positron IDE, there is some basic Git support, and you can also install Git extension, which is really nice. For instance, the can't pronounce it anymore. The GitLens extension for Git Rebase Interactive and other things, such as getting Git blame into your files locally. You can probably use other IDs, and I've heard good things about GitHub Desktop for when you interact with pull requests, for instance. So thank you. Here are the links to the slides and to the package.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Mael. That was fantastic, and actually looked very, approachable as like ways to get started on this. So if you've got a question for Mael, you can type it into the Q&A or the chat, or if you want, you can raise your hand and we'll
I can kick us off.
Yeah, kick us
Because
off, Andrew.
I've got a thought. My Git looks awful, and so the Git rebase is going to be game changing for me. One thing that I find that I run into is with the commit testing, where you have checks that have to be validated before it will accept a commit. I forget what the
like a Git hook, like
Git
A
hooks, yes.
pre-commit hook, a pre-commit hook.
Pre-commit
Yeah,
hooks.
pre-commit hook.
That's
Yeah.
the word I'm looking for. Which if my code is in a semi-broken state, it makes it so that I can't commit anything, and I end up having massive commits. So this rebase will be good. Have you run into that problem? I'm thinking that the solution might be to just push all the pre-commit hooks onto GitHub and not burden my computer so that it only has to be in a working state when I push it up. You're one who pushes a lot. So what do you think?
Yeah, what do you think about pre-commit hooks and like kind of the rules they put in that you're like, you can't commit that. Like what do you think about those?
So that's nice. I guess that's a choice you make, right? Either you fix up the commits before you actually commit them, or you do that like as Andrew said, like online, like on GitHub. That's what I would be more used to. But with pre-commit, isn't there a way to commit without running the checks, like some sort of
Yes.
cheating comment?
Yes.
Yes, it's dash
I would
no
use
dash
that.
verify. I do it all the time.
Yeah. So do your commit hooks, are they for like the C++ code or do you have turned on? Which kind of commit hooks do you use?
I actually for most of them I just pull the standard R pre-commit hooks, but if it's not compiling because of compile errors, because it changes cascade through. I'm working on a lot
Yeah.
of refactoring code, and if I change something, then it breaks something down the chain. But I would like to change one file, then another file, then another file. Like, okay, it's working now, then squish those together in one commit and push it up. So I like that rebase is going to be game changing for me.
Nice. Nice. So I'll ask another question and feel free to type in or to raise your hand or similar. So if someone is in a mode where they are currently pushing, commit, push, pull, like that's kind of their main use case. What do you feel like is a good next step? Like a good next thing to try to do, to kind of learn, maybe maybe using the practice package, which I'm gonna butcher the name of.
That's why I named it like that, to hear people.
Like what would be a good next one to practice, or like to maybe practice, and then when that situation comes up, you don't have to feel like, like, okay, no, I can try to do this. What do you think?
So I would say learning how to create branches, and then in Hoshit Git and Sapali Prepared, when there are two exercises that says I put the commit on the wrong branch, how do I fix it up? Like I have this branch, I made a commit on this branch, this commit should have been on main. How do I get out of that?
Yeah.
And they're actually not simple, but like pretty basic steps to get out of this situation. That's something I think is worth practicing, because I use it fairly regularly, like having to change a commit, like put it on the right branch because I made a mistake.
Yeah. And for almost all of these things, it's all doing it when it's local is very different than if you've already pushed it up to the remote. And so do you find, like, let's say your head's down, you're working, how often do you commit and how often do you push? I estimate.
I would say very often, but I am often in a branch. But today
okay.
I made a mistake. I pushed a commit to main.
Yeah.
I felt bad because I felt I'm giving a talk about Git and I'm doing this mistake. But so no, that happens. So,
yeah. Is Git Lens different from Git Kraken, or are those the same?
I don't, because I haven't used Git Kraken, but or maybe
think
I've used it, but a long time ago. That's a separate thing, right? You have a GUI from Git that's not in your Git Lens is very built into Positron or VS Code, I guess. So that Git Kraken is outside of your
Git. Yeah. So Git Kraken is I think like an app. that you use, if I understand it, but Git Lens is from Git Kraken. Like Git Lens
Okay.
is made by the same organization, but I don't think that the extension that Mael was showing, like I don't think that's considered Git Kraken. Like I think it's like like GitHub Desktop, I think is an alternative to Git Kraken, but the Git Lens is like a thing you can use in other IDEs like VS Code or Positron or similar. I believe. Yeah, I think that's right. I think that's
Are the
right.
extensions something that you can install from within Positron, or is it something you have to download separately and install?
You can install them inside. And so so extensions are useful for things like if you like a specific Git experience or you like a specific theme, or maybe you're like you connect to a certain kind of database, or if you use something like Databricks or like some kind of like these are very common extensions. Or if you are someone who, you mostly use R, but you develop packages that have C++ code in it, then you would install packages that provide the C++ linting, debugging, all that kind of thing. So you'd be like, I mostly use R, but I need to bring in the Rust extension, like the Rust analyzer, all that kind of thing. Or so it's like you can kind of customize the experience with what combination of languages and tooling and that kind of thing that you like. If you're just getting started on extensions, I will say my favorite. So Positron, much like and VS Code, much like RStudio, comes with rainbow parentheses built in, but there's an extension that will give you rainbow tabs, and it is so nice. Rainbow tabs, rainbow tabs. You want that. Get that extension. It helps. It's like you can see, especially in YAML, you can like see, you're like, like which level of indentation am I at? And you can like see it all with the colors, and it's very nice. Rainbow tabs.
Can you
Does it
do
just choose
starter
random
packs?
colors,
Oh,
or
sorry.
does it like color by file type?
It's anywhere that you would have tabs, Would you ask, Mael?
Can you create like starter packs of extensions for Positron? Like these
There
are
can
the
be. Yeah, yeah,
must-haves.
yeah. You can yourself make a pack,
Uh,
and then that can make it easier for yourself. If you're like, let me get the pack, or to share with a coworkers, or for teaching, you're like, get this pack. It's pretty straightforward to make a pack of extensions. Maybe we should make a recommended pack or something.
you should, because you have opinion.
Yeah. That's right. That's right. That's right. So if you do get started on Positron, you do not want to install the R or Python extensions, because that functionality is built into Positron. So you don't want to install the R extension or the Positron extension, but you would install like the Git Lens extension or the Rainbow Tabs extension or things like that. Or the like the one for the C debugger, like LLDB or whatever it's called. Night. All right, we're past the hour, so we will wrap this up here. Mael, thank you so much for that very, very useful talk. We got some really great questions here and comments here of how incredibly useful this was to be able to see how doable this is. So thank you so much for your time coming, even though you have a cold. We appreciate it very much. And thank you all for coming, and we will see you in a upcoming Salt Lake City R user group. Thank you all.